We're looking at next steps today for our chilli grow along. So we're going to have a look at the ones that we planted into the compost, and then we're also going to have a look at the ones that we started on the kitchen roll paper. So these ones have started to germinate, and I've got more germination on one variety, which is the Palavec, rather than the other. That is likely to do with the heat of the chilli rather than that the seeds aren't viable, and some can take that little bit longer than others. We are looking at removing the dome itself when we have the sight of at least half of these chillies that have started to break through the soil. And that doesn't need to be up until they are actually at the point where they have their first set of leaves. That can be when they are just literally starting to poke the green up above the soil level. So the first thing that we can do at this point is actually to open a slider on the top if you have one. If you don't, then leave it on for a couple more days. But as soon as you do have that 50%, then we are going to remove the dome and make sure that it has plenty of oxygen that's getting to these seedlings. Because these are heat loving plants, we can still leave them on the heat mat. However, if you've got them in a room that is quite warm already, or you want your heat mat for something else, then you could move them to another warm room as long as they do have plenty of light. If you haven't had your grow lights on so far, or you haven't had them in a window where they're going to get some daylight, then it is time to make sure that they have as much light as you can offer them as well at this point. And then for the ones that we have started on the kitchen paper, what you should be starting to see now is that you'll get some little tiny roots that start initially, like this little one here. And then if they are left that little bit longer, they will also start producing their leaves as well, like this one. It's absolutely fine to start potting them up when they have just their roots on, or we can wait until they have the first leaves and then we can pot them up then if that's easier. If you are doing them when they have only just got the tiny bit of root poking out, try to avoid touching the roots. And then when you've got the leaves, we just want to lift them by the leaves. Another thing to consider is that these roots can start making their way between the paper, and then when you need to lift them, it could actually rip those roots. So we don't want to leave these too long if we can help it. So I'm going to be potting my seeds up into soil blocks today. However, if you're using a normal pot, then we're just going to fill the pot to the top and then make a bit of a hole in the top, exactly as I have here with these soil blocks. Don't forget to label any of the seeds as you move them. For those that have got the leaves already, we're just going to gently place the roots into the soil block and just tease them down as gently as you can, and then squeeze the soil around the area. We do want the leaves not to necessarily be touching the wet soil, so just bring it ever so slightly up, but I do mean a couple of millimeters, not very far at all. Burying them deeper will help them get some more sturdy roots. And then I'm just going to backfill some of this hole in order to pop one of these seeds in that has literally just popped a root out so far. So that's what the seed is currently looking like. Using a pair of tweezers is definitely going to help, but as I said, be careful that we don't disturb that root. And then just lay that onto the top, and you can just pop a little bit of compost on top of that, but it is a tiny amount of compost. We don't want much at all, and we should see that poking through then within a couple of days. I'm only going to be picking out a couple of these because I already have some others that have been started as well. So I'm just going to take 5, and there you go. You can see that one just broke as I was trying to pull it because it's already gone through the kitchen paper. So that one's going to be no good to me now. So these are just going to make their way into the compost now because I don't actually need these. That's those 5 there. So we've got the 2 that are already showing through the soil, and we've got the leaves on already. This one's actually got a bit of a leaf broken, but that should be fine. And then we've got the other three where it was just their roots starting to poke through. And you can see I've actually done this with some ones that were a little bit older, and there's a tiny little shoot poking through down there as well. This one's actually empty at the moment. So they will come up, and it can just take a little bit of time. One of the things that we do want to make sure that we do now is that we put these back onto some heat. We can find ourselves shocking them a little bit. This compost is cold. It's been in the polytunnel compared to the others that have been in the house. To avoid a little bit of shock, one of the things that we could also do is to actually take our soil in the house and let it warm up for a few hours before we pop these seeds in. But because they are so tiny, they're not very big at all, they usually do absolutely fine just potted straight up like this. And then they will catch up with the others, and we'll be looking at those again at a later date, but they won't need pricking out. They will stay in the pots that you put them in for that little bit longer.